Hi, this is Jen from Curiousmatic, and I'm here today with my colleague Dutch to talk about strategic reserves. Essentially, a strategic reserve is what happens when a government or a company, usually a government, stockpiles huge amounts of expensive commodities in case of emergency or market instability. So I'll open up to questions. Dutch, you have anything to ask me about this?
Yeah, Jen, I know a little bit about strategic reserves, but I've seen that sometimes they stockpile strange things. In your research, have you found any weird things that governments stockpile?
Sure. Well, most strategic reserves are for kind of practical things like petroleum and, grain, precious metals in case of a shortage in any of those areas. But then other reserves are a little bit strange, or they may seem strange to you and I, though they're not actually strange to the countries that have the stockpiles. So one example of this is Canada, which actually has a maple syrup strategic reserve. The reason they have that is because they produce 69% of the world's maple syrup, so it makes sense for them to, keep that since it's so important to the market. So they have at least 12,000 tons of maple syrup stockpiled, and actually 1,000 tons were stolen in 2012. Fun fact. Then another kind of weird strategic reserve is in China. They have a strategic reserve for pork. This includes live pigs and also frozen meat. We don't know exactly how much they have, but considering how much pork is consumed in China, it's probably quite a lot.
Oh, interesting. And then, so what happens when the strategic reserves are no longer needed? Do they just throw them out or something?
That's a great question, and the best probably example of a time that's happened was with the United States Federal Helium Reserve. So in 1925, this reserve was established for helium in case of an emergency that we needed them for dirigibles or airships. Obviously, warfare has changed a lot since then. We don't rely as much on helium for that in particular. So the reserve has been selling off helium for years now. This has actually been pretty problematic because there's a shortage of helium and it's a non-renewable substance, so the prices keep changing and it's been kind of hectic all around, and the Federal Helium Reserve sort of holds all the cards, so it's something they've been trying to resolve for years now.
Okay. So one other question I had was about strategic reserves of like medical stuff. I remember, oh, it was some years ago that the U.S. I think had stockpiled enough anthrax vaccine for the entire population of the United States. Is that kind of thing still being done today?
Sure. What you might be referring to is what's called the Strategic National Stockpile in the United States. And that's a strategic reserve that has antibiotics, vaccines, chemical antidotes, medical supplies, anything you could need in case of a huge emergency like bioterrorism or something like that. And so in case of emergency, that can be released to a certain location in less than 12 hours. So we can just hope that never happens, but if it does, at least we have this supply. And then in case of a really extreme emergency where most of life is eradicated from the planet, there's always Norway's seed vault, which stores 770,000 seed samples from around the world so that humanity can just start fresh with all of the new plant life and stuff.
Okay. Sounds really interesting. Where can I find out more about this, Jen?
You can go to curiousmatic.com or click the link connected to this to read more about strategic reserves, where they are, what they are. And you can also follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook to get more updates on interesting news throughout the day. All right, this has been Jen and Dutch for Curiousmatic. Thanks for joining us.